My job today is to talk a little bit about what we see at the operations level and the manufacturing level, so I'll try to be timely. I think we're a little bit behind. It's not, for us, it's not just government and regulation or weather. It's a lot of different things that drive the manufacturing for our factories, one in Houston and one in Fort Worth. All those items trickle down, so it is really a macroeconomic push that drives us here at Southwest Oilfield Products. Some fast facts to get the commercial, as Tom said, up there. Global footprint, so what we see is sales into about 80 countries, about 450 different unique customers, really on the drilling side and the well servicing side, and some of the products that we manufacture for your consumption. Some of the industry overviews. So we've got really two separate markets, and we do production on one side and well servicing on the other. And really what we're seeing is the renaissance in technology on the land drilling. So and talk about this a little later, there's a real move on the technology side. So the companies that don't keep up with that curve are going to struggle in years to come. Rig count domestically has been relatively flat. It's increased internationally, so we've seen some good stuff out of that. And there's some positive trends in the offshore drilling, although there may be some speculation on whether or not that continues, because getting oil and gas relatively easy out of the shale plays on land may change those economics in the future. Positive growing demands in China, the Middle East, and Latin America. So it's, we are seeing some of that on the gas and oil play in some of the spot markets. In the well service, really it's concentrated to North America. The shale plays, as Tom mentioned, don't happen in France. There are some other plays out there that are happening in Iraq and Argentina and some other places. It's a fragmented equipment and service market, and there's really a continued domestic surplus compared to demand. We also expect about 400 exploratory shale wells to be drilled outside the U.S., which would be a record in 2014. So we're in a technology renaissance here. There's less rigs, they're drilling more feet, discovering more oil and gas, and it's, that is, Tom and Dave really pointed out, is really the sausage at the end of the day that the drilling contractors are bringing to the table. So they've done a great job. And some of those technology advances, just pad drilling and walking rigs, the increased presence and prevalence of AC rigs versus the old style DC drilling rigs, and uptick in the mud pump systems to 7,500 PSI, so they can drill faster, more efficient, less times on the pad, and broadens operating range and increases the rig versatility. So we're seeing this technology renaissance really from probably 2012 and 11 even, and we see it growing in 14, substantially growing in 14 and continuing on. So again, a real shift in the technology out there on the drilling side. The dreaded C word for us in manufacturing is China. So some companies have been manufacturing, US-based companies have been manufacturing in China for 40 years now. That's a long time. They make good products. They've really, certainly as it relates to manufacturing, have come a long ways. And as I mentioned on there, they made the iPhone, so they've really got there technology-wise. I think the takeaway on this is as a manufacturer, it puts pressure on us to stay competitive. So not that long ago, 6, 7 years ago, to get Chinese-made products on rigs or well service equipment that was in Louisiana or Texas was probably more cumbersome and difficult than it is today. So we are seeing an acceptance, and it's not just China, it's other low-cost countries, so India and Romania and some other places as well. From a manufacturing perspective, we see really just the change. It is a zero-sum game. It is survival of the fittest. It's a contact sport out there. We have increased raw material costs out there on our side. This came up in one of Tom's slides. The labor cost and availability has really been a challenge. If you know somebody that needs a job in Odessa or Williston, let us know, because getting people is extremely difficult. And more people, as they say, are going to the house, right? It's a lot of folks are retiring out of the business, and we haven't seen the influx yet of good young talent. So there's a lot of positions that have been difficult for us to fill. And I think my colleagues on the manufacturing side see and feel the same pain. And then really just some of the general overhead costs that we've seen. The changes in healthcare have impacted us in 2014. So, and that's not for the better. It's more cost this year than it was last year. And then, of course, environmental concerns. We got to stay on top of that because we're in the U.S., of course, and taxes. So really try to go through a little bit of an overview, and then we'll break it down by geography. Really the slides will be made up on two portions, the drilling side on the left and what we see on well service on the right, because they are really two independent segments. But in North America, what you see there is really a play that at $26,000 a day, or that range for a U.S. land rig, it's advantageous to have more of them versus offshore. And we're seeing relatively modest increases in rates in 14 and late 13. Rig efficiencies continue to be very important in that market. On the well servicing side, we do see a lot of consolidation in the market. So even though George Mitchell and shale play has been around a long time, there's been a lot of, I think it's a lot like the locomotive and train industry, where there's been consolidations and bankruptcies and restructurings, and we see that. And there's been some pricing pressures, and I think we'll continue to see pricing pressure on the fracking side in 2014 because supply is strong out there as it relates to demand. Of course, because of oversupply, what we do see is a strong aftermarket. So there's a lot of horsepower out there right now fracking. So you see a lot of consumables being used, which is always good. So shifting to Latin America, this one is, instead of bifurcating the slide, it's really a single message. Really the big three with Venezuela, Argentina, and Brazil. Political pressures in Venezuela and instability in Venezuela have really hurt the business with a large customer there, which is PDVSA. Argentina has roughly 2% per month inflation going on right now. So in currency constraints, they've got anywhere between 18 and 20 months worth of current account reserves in hard currency. So the hard currency is running out, so they're trying to hang on to every dollar and euro that they have. So that's been a struggle. And Brazil has seen some inflation, although recently it's slowed down a little bit to about 0.5% per month. So it's Latin America is a little more lukewarm for us than maybe it was a few years ago. The one good thing out of Latin America is really a change in the Mexico as it relates to Pemex, the energy reform there, opening that up to privatization. On the well service side, again, Argentina and some of the other countries have a large and significant demand on well service, but it's a little more tepid for us as it relates to manufacturing because of all the currency risk and political instability. The Middle East and Africa, what we're seeing on the drilling side is really a robust, extremely robust Middle East. 30 plus rigs being added into Iraq and Oman in 14, and over 50 in Saudi Arabia. They certainly, the OPEC countries certainly understand the graphs as well, that production is not increasing. Of course, North Africa has been unsettled for the last couple of years. It's been a struggle. And I think we see a lot of activity and continued uptick in the Middle East. So we think the next few years is going to be very strong outside of North Africa, but very strong in the Middle East. Same on the well service side. The business is very strong on the well service side. 80% of our new equipment is going into the Middle East right now, which makes sense. The North American fracking market is oversupplied, so the next largest market is the Middle East. And we do expect that to continue for the next couple of years as they mature that market. Europe, really, I think when I started my career 18, 19 years ago now, one of the things I remember coming in was that the North Sea was a mature market and declining. And 19 years later, it's still a mature market, and it's still out there, and they're doing good work. We're seeing increases there. Russia, of course, high potential, high risk. So not just politically, but all the other things that go around doing business in Russia, FCPA and other issues that a manufacturer from the U.S. or even European have to pay attention to. The well service side, as we say, it's no fracking there. It's all about beer, or if you're in France, it's about the wine. So not a big market there. Asia, we like Asia a lot. The stability has been long term. There's been currency stability. There's been really political stability. The growth in Malaysia and Vietnam and Indonesia have been modest over the years, and continued needs there. Again, China is going to be a big opportunity for years to come. They potentially sit on the largest shale reserves in the world, potentially. They're still drilling at this point, but we see significant growth out of the Australian LNGs. So Chevron and others have sunk billions of dollars into a couple of large projects there, Gorgon and Wheatstone, and they're not completely on board yet, but over time those will continue to have a significant impact on the region. And really on the well service side, it's really China, I think, is what we see there. They have done some privatization and modest results right now, not great results, and we'll see how that turns out over time. So some of the closing thoughts from a manufacturing perspective. Really the green light, North American drilling is a house of fire right now. It's going very well. The drilling contractors like Neighbors and like H&P and others are doing extremely well right now. The Middle East, as I say, our carpets are pointed towards Mecca. Lots of activity on the drilling and well service side, and that's going to continue for the near term. The offshore market, at least for now, is very strong. Probably that will downtick over time. We do see a lot of activity Asia drilling-wise, and on the China well service, we think that's going to be a very good opportunity over time. Yellow light, cautiously optimistic on North America frac. It's still in an oversupply situation, facing some pricing pressures there. Mexico, I think, will open up. It's probably mañana. It's going to be a couple of years before they get there. And East and West Africa development, funded primarily by CNPC out of China. We'll see what happens there. And then really struggling with Venezuela, Argentina, North Africa, and I did my slides before Russia, but I would probably put Russia on there. That may have a strong deleterious impact on what happens for manufacturers in the U.S. over a long period of time. I don't think it was mentioned, but Russia traditionally in the top 3 in oil and gas producers year over year. So what happens in the Ukraine is very important to the rest of us. So we'll see what happens. And with that, I'd like to wrap it up and turn it back over to Bill.